Hey, Barack.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you now,
Okay.
Barack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. So let's see if Alex joins as well. We had an interesting discussion the other day about the telemetry service, and he was of the opinion that you cannot add any of your own metrics. So I don't know if you could clarify anything around that, perhaps, when he comes on. Um, he means that, okay, you have certain amount of metrics in the spec, and that's what you can use, and that's all.
But I think Raphael said we could add any metrics. Morning.
Um, and also, we're gonna have to have some sort of person that take notes. I don't know if because last week, um, so it's hard to take notes when you discuss, right? If you are involved in that discussion, and last week we didn't get a recording, so basically left that kind of without notes. which is the problem.
Hello everyone, this is Muttu.
Hi, Moto. The recording is on, but I don't know if we can get it if Luis is not posting it.
You can get it. It's usually you have a choice of saving it at the end, I believe.
Not me. I think you have to have some permission for that, right?
You can initiate a recording, you can save a recording.
But it's going right now. I can see that.
Yeah, it is going. I can see that too.
So I don't know how to, because normally what Luis would do is he would save it and post it on the wiki. So then, like, I could listen to it and I can take some notes. And the problem is, if he doesn't do that, how do we get to?
Okay, well, you are, according to Zoom, you are the host. And you have the ability to record. So
That's a statement. I'm not sure it addressed my question, though. I mean, I can record a separate recording, are you saying? Or?
well, what I'm saying is that if Zoom considers you to be a host, then you should be able to manage recordings as well as others.
I'm not a host. Please ask the host to give you permission to record, it says.
But it's recording.
Yeah. The issue with, yeah, so we still have the same issue, right? The recording is going on, it's being saved somewhere, and we can't access it. So, and if I hit record, it says, please ask the host to give you permission to record. So I don't know.
So is that automatically recording then?
It's interesting. Probably is. Perhaps you can schedule it.
Okay, well, great.
Alex, it actually starts recording when anyone logs in, but I guess only Liu can give us a recording.
Yeah, that's what I think. So we need somebody to, I mean, I can take notes, but I will not take notes when I'm talking, but.
Well, let's see if we can basically summarize key decisions or whatnot in the chat as well. That should be sufficient.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. So on the agenda today, we have the telemetry service, and we had specifically last meeting, we had some input from Rafael that perhaps for the first release of telemetry service, we only have a feature where we enable the use of subscribing to metric reports, and the reports that would be supported would only be the ones that are supported by the vendors then. So you will get what you get basically from those vendors. Like if you subscribe to Dell or HPE, you will get whatever metric reports that are in there. The elegance of that is you get something out quick. It's very scalable because it's basically just contacting their telemetry service, setting this up, and then you capture the events and you just send them out via the event bus. That's event service. So that's kind of a good approach. We had multiple issues we identified if we wanted to do something more elaborative, like allowing for northbound clients to set up their own customized metric reports and these type of things, because filling the gaps of metrics that do not exist would have to happen in the plugins, and that will quickly become a bottleneck if you have many servers, because the plugins would have to go and query at a certain frequency and so on. So we were thinking like a first step, we could do this approach. And Alex, you were not here at the time, so I just wanted to bring this in front of everybody again.
I think as long as we can agree on the actual telemetry format, then it'll be fine. Because what we don't want to do is, again, make the problem worse by basically creating vendor-specific telemetry events. So we can, I mean, I agree with the fact that you should be able to push or publish events. And if anybody wants to subscribe, they will get them. That's the event-driven model that works really well for scalability. But we just want to make sure that when you get that event and you decode, that you can decode the content in a consistent way. So that would be my 2 cents. I mean, we can start small, we can publish events, and for the most part, I think the idea is to kind of move to a push model anyway. If I understood correctly, that's kind of what you guys were discussing last time. And it's fine as long as it's not, a Tower of Babel. Because the whole point is that we're not gonna, yes, we'll get the stuff out quickly, but the problem is that the value of that stuff that we get out quickly is going to be very minimal, because I would now need to have a telemetry adapter that knows how to interpret telemetry from individual vendors.
So, Bharat, you've been looking at this. Are they going to be different? I mean, obviously you get a metric report from a Dell and an HPE, you're going to find different metrics in there, but is the JSON body going to look different? Or
I had a look at HP once. Dell, I couldn't. The report seems to be like, the format and the schema is standard, but yeah, the metrics could differ, but the schema itself is standard.
Yeah, that's the problem, right, Murad? Because the schema is great. That's just the data exchange format. But then the actual content, if it's completely different for each vendor, we haven't solved anything. We just basically perpetuated the problem. So to me, one way to move forward here is to at least start trying to establish some normative way of interpreting the content. Or one thing we can do, I don't know if OCP profiles account for this, but
no, they don't.
we need to maybe create some ODIM telemetry profiles that basically say at minimum you support the following metrics or the following events or whatever, and then you can go from there. I mean, you can still send your private events. If somebody wants to add value, you can say this is an event that is not registered generically for all vendors, and you can add your own, I suppose. But at least we would have some degree of interoperability.
But even the same vendor will have different type of sensors on different boxes. So there will be a different event in that manner, right? That, okay, from a DL380, you might get 16 sensor events. In a metric report from a DL360, you might only get 8. I don't know. I'm just speculating, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I guess to me, metric reports are kind of very old-fashioned way of doing it. I think we need to create a much more dynamic system where we just publish events when anomalies happen, and what happens, and there's acknowledgement of those events. And then once they're acknowledged, then we, whoever's managing the devices upstream, the orchestrators or the aggregation service or whatnot, again, then we would, they could do whatever they need to do to extract additional information. But, rather than trying to poll at regular time intervals and try to get these reports, which, 99% of the time will be positive, why bother?
But so first out, I think we need to differ between metrics and events. They tie together in the telemetry service because they have it set up so that you can subscribe to metric reports by using the event service. But a metric is not generally an event that goes out. It's more of an instant snapshot of some data that is changing
Yeah, I never
every
said
so
the
often.
spec was, I never said the spec was perfect.
Yeah. So what we proposed in the first release was that, okay, you can basically say, hey, Mr. Telemetry Service, I want to have this metric report, and then in that case, you know what metric reports are available for a certain vendor, and that will be it. And I agree with you, Alex. That is not a great solution, because now you have these different vendors. A much better solution would be, oh, we have a set of metrics that are supported in ODIM, and here is this rich set. And if you want to play in ODIM, you need to provide those metrics.
Yeah.
That would be a good solution. And if you can then push it out by streaming them as well, and these type of
That's
things.
my point. I think streaming is what we need to do, because if we, continue to do this polling stuff, it'll never work out at scale. It'll scale to a certain point. Let's put it this way. And we have experience with this, right? We have tools that, poll hardware divided, poll the BMCs for information. The problem is that we're even finding hard to manage more than, say 1,000 devices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we looked at it and we reached the same conclusion. It's going to be very difficult.
The 1,000 seems to be like a magic number. At that point, you start elongating your polling intervals, and then you're screwed, because a lot can happen in 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So
But how do we? Because the problem is, if we go down the route where we say we want this to be more useful and so on, then it will take probably 2 years before we have something in ODIM that has anything to do with telemetry.
Well, yes and no. So one way to do this quickly is to say, look, we have these, we have the metric reports because they're already in the spec, and that's more of a pull model as opposed to a push, right?
They are pushed out by events, but yeah.
But in essence, it's a periodic kind of state that you're pushing out. It's not, notification of anomalies. And what I think we need to do is say, leave that alone for now. We'll support it. We'll publish it. We'll do what we can. And then we define what the metric formats, and basically define a data dictionary for the metrics. We've done this in the past, I think it's been done in ETSI-NFV, for example, for other types of data, but there was a registry basically. And when you registered an event, or you registered something in the registry, you had to specify what the actual JSON schema was for each metric, like what were the units, and what were the values, and what was valid, what was not valid. So you can have something that kind of covers the entire format of the report, and then in terms of the overall JSON body, right, the request, but then you also have to kind of come up with a way of saying, look, we'll agree that this metric, that is a value across the board, has a certain unit of measurement and has a certain value range and whatnot. If we can at least do something like that, then I think it'll be at least has some value in the near term.
So what is the exact problem with the current telemetry service as written in the spec? Are we saying, because I haven't really studied it like Bharat and you, Alex, but are we saying that we have an issue with them stating up here are 40 metrics, and those are the only ones that are defined?
My understanding of it is, my take on the situation is that there is no way today to actually specify what the metrics mean, and these metrics can be vendor specific. And so if the aim of of ODIM as interoperability, then we need to then kind of figure out how to enrich that model, right, a little bit. And one way to do it would be to A, agree on a set of metrics that everyone should be able to export, and B, define what the metrics actually mean, the semantics, right? If we can
Yeah.
do that for some generic set of events that we believe to be of general value from the interoperability perspective, then I think we've got something, and we can continue to do what is in the spec. It doesn't mean that it's perfect, because it's periodic pushes, right? You know, it's not that it's continuously streaming data saying I'm okay, I'm not okay. In fact, it shouldn't even say I'm okay. It should just basically, if there's a problem detected on board a system, then it should raise the, ring the bell, raise the alarm, and then, in the form of an event. And then if anyone wants to handle it, and hopefully there will be something, right? Then you can handle it.
But isn't metric more like memory utilization? Perhaps not memory utilization, but a CPU temperature and these type of things, rather than an alarm. Of course, you can set up thresholds and say, if I have these conditions, I want to generate metrics and a metric
That's
report.
my point, right? So you're right. There's very little intelligence at the source. And the trouble with that is that as long as you have very little intelligence at the source, and you can't partially, at least, determine what's going on, you are going to be doing a lot more at the point of telemetry aggregation.
But actually, like, if you look at the power and all, they're fairly common. Maybe they're having different labels. So something like instead of ambient temperature, some vendor may say that it's, headroom temperature, or like I've
Yeah,
seen
I
it
mean,
as.
we just wanted to find some commonality, I think, just, so that anyone looking at this report would derive the same value from it.
Yeah, that'll need a little bit work, but I think I mean, that,
I don't think it's much, right? I mean, well,
yeah,
it's non-trivial, let's put it this way, but the benefit of doing that up front kind of sets the stage for doing more later.
yeah. But then, like getting it to be the metrics and the reports to be common, because they're not definable right now, isn't it? Whatever the vendor says is a report is what you get. So getting them to change that, and we go back to that being, big circus by itself. So maybe what we can do, Alex, is in the first phase we uh, try to ship as is, and then continuously work on this, specifying the common metrics. And worst case, we could retrofit ODIM to, stitch the two together and pass it up, or
Yeah.
even the plugin to convert from the vendor specific metric names and values to. So if somebody is, having a different averaging principle, I mean, in formula, we could change that and do something like that. And because
So
the first,
the other thing to keep in mind is, I think the BMC kind of, at least, from our perspective, our being Intel perspective, the BMC implementations going forward need to start accounting for onboard analytics. Because again, you want to handle as much as possible at the source, not at the destination, right? Otherwise, this way you can minimize the management overhead required to process all this, flow of events.
yeah,
So ideally, we would see things like CPU fault detection and memory fault detection and, other things of that ilk be handled locally, or at least, have some ability to analyze what's going on within the box and raise more intelligent alarms as opposed to just sending raw temperature readings out.
No, I understand that that is handy, but what are you proposing there? Should ODIM have some sort of an analytics service running on?
Yeah, well, so this is what I proposed, I think, on day 5 of the community. I said that, you know, what we need to be able to do is add in a bunch of, so first, telemetry is very ambiguous. I think what we need to be able to do is to add data collection plugins that know how to collect specific data. And then we need to add analytics plugins. Much like we do the management plugins, we can use exactly the same pattern. And from the implementation perspective, you can implement it all in one blob of code and just expose 3 separate APIs or, you know, endpoints for your service, or you can do it as 3 separate services. But we need to have the flexibility.
So for things like a memory fault or CPU failure, there will be events sent out, right?
Yes.
Metrics is more about trends. Okay, we have detected that you are running extremely hot on your CPUs for days now, and because we get all those metrics, we can form an opinion about that and perhaps come up with some sort of a
there sort of, you know, it depends on the level of root cause analysis that you can do, right? So, you know, one thing there are critical alarms or critical things that will happen inside the box that you can simply raise as a publish on some channel on the bus, right? And we have to abstract the bus, by the way. For the messages, and then there will be messages or events that will say in 3 hours your CPU will fail because it's been running hot for 10 days, or we've been seeing voltage spikes which lead us to believe you'll start having uncorrectable memory errors. Okay, or this power supply is going to melt into a puddle of plastic in another 2 hours because of its current temperature trend. So it's kind of like I don't know. I mean, it's predictive. It's foresight, right? So I think you kind of have 3 kinds of data points that you want to be able to expose from a device. One is kind of facts. You know, this is what's going on right now. And then you can also provide some insights into those raw events and maybe analyze them a little bit and say that, you know, there's a certain, you know, trend, or there's a certain failure because we've detected, you know, for example, look, we've detected a change in the pitch of the fan. It's going to fail in 2 hours because we know, you know, without any doubt that, you know, when that happens, that's what you get. Replace the fan. Okay.
Yeah, but Alex, I just have 5 minutes. I just have a go. I need to drop off after that. So see, like this is from a fault management perspective, yes, but then there are many other use cases for even performance management, say like memory utilization, which is not so urgent, but you know, people like to have a trend of the data, and usually people.
That's why I'm suggesting we can keep the metrics, I suppose, if it's not non-operational, if it's more, you know, not mission critical, let's put it this way. Then yeah, you can use polling and you can do that, and or you can just publish reports periodically, and then, you know, have the receivers figure out what to do with that data.
Okay.
But for mission critical operational events that have to do with operational stability, reliability, FCAPS, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? Those we need to make event, you know, those types of that type of data collection has to be event driven or streamed or something.
Yeah.
I think if we start again, I think if we keep what we have and just simply add in the ability to normalize what the actual metrics mean, then I think we will be okay.
Yeah, but one interesting thing is that, you know, the power and temperature, they're already covered by the vendors. So for that, we can maybe use the existing mechanism, but try to map it to a standard set of events or metrics based on intelligible actions, as you say. But the rest of that, yeah, we can say like memory usage and NIC usage. Somebody will want something like that. For that, we can have a data collector based approach.
Yeah, and when yeah, that's right. And the
Yep.
data collector could actively poll, or it could just listen on some event channel, right? And then when you publish the data using the eventing API, then you will get those that collect the data will get it, wake up, collect the information, and go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So another option would be to have the analytics part northbound of ODIM. If ODIM can stream all these metrics, it can capture it there, right? And be a subscriber of that updated
So
telemetry service.
right, and so it really depends on where you want to handle the failures or anomalies, right? If you can certainly close the loop with outside orchestration engines, right? So you can basically say that what ODIM does is exports an interface for data collection, and it's a pub sub type of a interface. We can hide the fact that it's actually based on the eventing service, but whatever, right? The point is that you can either push or pull data. We can export that off northbound from ODIM and then integrate with upstream tools to close the loop. The closing will be analytics and decision making. And then they would execute an action, and the action goes back to ODIM, to the aggregation service, and gets fanned out over some set of devices, right? That would be one way to do it. The other way to do it, you always handle faults as close to the source as you can. And if you have the ability from a hardware feature perspective to, for example, fence off broken parts, or, you've got onboard spares that you can put into service because something else is broken, something along those lines, then, why not allow for that to happen?
Yeah. But you are kind of thinking that the first step we could do is to get those metric reports available on the northbound side. Then I think it seems like we might need to work with improving the spec a bit, from what I understand. And
it would also be good to, I think, create a notion of a data collector plugin southbound, so that we can actually manage the native telemetry coming out of devices that are not redfish based, right? And I'm not just talking about compute. I'm also thinking that something like that could work for storage of a network device. And and again, like I said, any vendor could have a choice of implementing those plugins as one blob of code that exposes 3 endpoints, or 2, or whatever it is, or have 2 separate ones.
Yeah.
Just need to be able to replace those data collectors, right, over time, and make them field replaceable somehow. Not hardwire everything in that would prevent extra goodness from being surfaced in an expedient way.
The data collectors.
Yeah, so an example, right? Let's say HP has implements a standard set of data sources. Let's say that, right? And then you want to add a few others that are really HP specific because of how your hardware is designed and how it's made, right? And so the default reference implementation of the data collector that we put into the community will not know about the HP private events. But if you replace the implementation and there is an interface that you you kind of plug into, then you could potentially add your private events in, and as long as they're signified as such, you know, the receiving orchestrator might throw away everything that's not generic, or if it's an HP orchestrator, it'll say, oh, I see these other events and I know what to do with them.
Yeah.
Okay, but what you have is pluggability and flexibility to replace things or completely disable something on some systems. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, so perhaps we need to drill down in the spec as well and see what we can improve there. That's a part where I feel we might need to do some homework. I certainly need to read up on it. I know there is some flexibility in there because they have categorized the events, like if it's a temperature sensor event, there are different type of metrics you can define. Now I'm also saying events, sorry about that. I mean metrics. And there is also value attached to them if they're integers or floats and things of that nature. But I don't know what flexibility you have to go create your own metric. So that's something I need to understand.
Well, or extend that model in a way that doesn't require a specification change.
Yeah.
That's really the most important thing, because I guarantee you the pace of innovation will will be much greater than the pace of spec changes or the cadence of spec change.
Yeah.
That's what I worry about.
Yep. So I want to allow time for the composition service as well. I don't know if Muthu has any updates there. I also went on this website and tried to reach the Redfish whatever portal to add a request, and it turns out that thing has a different authorization mechanism than the regular DMTF members section, even though they are from the same domain. So that was kind of interesting. So I tried to log into that and got an authentication issue, and I had to go and register a new account. Muthu, was this also your experience, and did you manage to work around that?
Yeah, the same. I also had the same experience, and now I was able to create a user and I was able to log in. And in a proposal page, I have added my questions. Probably I can share my screen.
Yeah, please.
So this is the feedback portal. This is the feedback portal, and we can like post the feedback here. It seems I'm not yet posted anything on the DMTF portal. On the composition service proposal, I have added some like details here so that if you guys review and say okay, and then I can post it. Basically, the first question, we have only one question for now, and Alexa has some other things, I guess.
Yeah, I have to add those in here, guys. I've been really behind. But,
yeah, the Redfish composition service is not allowing the post action for the new resource blocks. The schema defines the deletable, insertable, and updatable as false. So we should be able to support the CRUD operations on the resource blocks. That is
should we set some context here, maybe, and say that in general, at least for the near term, the initial population of that information is likely to be done by administrators, not through dynamic discovery. And because of that, we need some, some normative way to create these things, delete them, basically do CRUD.
But didn't you outline that further up? Do you have the use cases there? Or okay, so you're just going to post it. Yeah, I think we need to get the use cases in there as well.
Yeah, we need to, yes, but when we ask DMTF a question, it might be good to provide a little bit of the detail of why we care, right? So that's the only thing. I mean, the question is fine. I just feel like we need to say, hey, are you giving them all of this, by the
No,
way?
no. I'm not going to give
Okay.
everything. I'm just going to provide this information.
Yeah,
And
and
probably I can add a kind of like a little bit more information, the real-time use case. Administrator there are situations administrator may need to create resource
and
blocks.
the key point there is, again, interoperability and portability of that definition. You know, if the interfaces by which stuff is seeded a standard, then that creates more interoperability, as opposed to having vendor private interfaces and private, you know, representations of that.
Can I use like this use cases like needed for ODIM or something like that? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can also put a link to this page as well, to our wiki page, because it's open for the world, right?
This proposal page, right?
Hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'd suggest just post it, and then we'll see. I mean, I will push on my side to see if we can get something done here.
Yeah, sure. And I have one more question regarding the system collection capabilities. I think this is not for the DMTF, probably to this audience. ODIM normally the system collection capabilities are global to the system collection, right? So since ODIM is supporting multi-vendor resources, suppose a Dell server or a Intel server or some other HP server or any other vendor servers. So every server's Redfish service may have its own capabilities, collection capabilities for systems, right? So when we are doing an aggregated resource collection, how can we manage these kind of collection capabilities? But Redfish defines collection capabilities as global to the system collection. So whatever the resources identified by ODIM and exposed in its northbound will fall under one collection capabilities, right? In ODIM within ODIM. So, but the underlying service may have a different capabilities.
Well,
So
what is the collection capabilities as far as, so you get all the systems, right? Is there a collection capability object somewhere? Or?
Yeah, the system resource, the system collection has a capabilities resource, and it has all the capabilities of that system collection. Collection capabilities is a kind of like what you call a policy or like attribute level requirements, or I don't know. I don't know how I can say exactly.
and the capabilities, remind me again what those are. They are
I see them here, but I kind
So
of
policies like
no, these are limits. This is different, right?
yeah.
Capabilities.
So for example, resource block saying like required on create. So resource block to compose a system, the resource block is required. That is the kind of defining the policy or something like that.
So,
Updatable
but
after
isn't that
create.
dictated by profiles? Or?
I guess I'm wondering, you know, what, you know, how to discern different capabilities at different levels, right? So for example, there'll be hardware platform capabilities that will differ between, say, Intel, AMD, and ARM platforms. And those have to do with certain CPU features or you know, platform level features that are specific to individual vendors. And you know, there certainly have been not attempts, but you know, there are different ways of sort of normalizing that. You know, DMTF has an approach. There are other approaches as well, but that's at the low level. So then, once you compose a system, are there higher order capabilities, or you basically aggregate all the capabilities that you have in terms of resource from the resource block perspective, and then you're done?
So in such a case, like ODIM will expose one global collection capability, so composition service can consume that, right? So,
but let me give you an example. I may have a collection of resource blocks that, you know, some of which could have a secure enclave capability, and some will not. but it's just a bunch of resource blocks allotted, to a particular zone, resource zone. So there is the intent, the specification of the intent, which is part of the request body, right? In the API, and then you have to match that against the capabilities. And so I guess I'm trying to, I haven't looked at this. I'm trying to understand how that works.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it either. I see there is a collection capability type of JSON definition, and I guess it can be handled just like any profile, right?
Yeah.
Any other object, and we can just dictate what we need in there. So if you have viewpoints, we can go and create this and have it in our profiles, right?
Yeah, suppose, this is a collection capability for ODIM system collection. So system collection allows a minimum compute 1 when you are composing a computer system. Maybe we should pause a computer system, and maximum is 1. So one composition request should have only 1 compute. And maximum storage we can add up to 8. This is where the problem starts. For example, the underlying BMC or any other like vendors Redfish service, it may have a different collection capabilities. For example, HP's BMC may have exposing a different capabilities. Maximum storage is 4. Since ODIM is consuming like multi-vendor like resources, every vendor's Redfish service may have a different capabilities. So since the resource collection capabilities for system collection is a global object, it's single place. So how are we going to handle it in ODIM? There are 2 servers underlying Redfish services, which is managed by like ODIM. 2 servers have like maximum storages. One server has 4, one other server has 8. So we need to aggregate and show it here, or it's not like a part of composition service. I just want to understand, because composition service will consume this information from ODIM.
I think the real question is if the resource zones are going to be heterogeneous in terms of their composition, meaning that you don't have to have a homogeneous set of capabilities for individual blocks within the zone.
Yeah.
Then you have this problem. If you assert that everything must look the same, then you maybe don't have this problem.
Yeah, and the like resource zones has a kind of link to the capability system capabilities. So when we compose a node, we compose a system, we may need to make use of this and collect the capabilities, and based on that we should allow maximum number of resources.
And again, when you add in something to that code to the resource zone, if you add additional capacity into it, if it has different capabilities, then what do we do then?
So are we saying this is something we can't address with profiles? Or?
I don't think it's a profile issue. I think it's just trying to understand how to handle collections of, not collections, but resource zones that contain non-uniform members. That's the real question.
Yeah.
I have 3 servers in my resource zone. I have 3 compute blades, let's say, one from Dell, one from HP, one from, I don't know, from Intel or ARM or what. It doesn't matter, just they're different. But, I still want to be able to build things out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe ARM is not a good example because you want to have some basic instruction set compatibility. So let's say it's AMD and Dell. I mean, AMD and Intel-based blades from different manufacturers. They may have different capabilities.
And those, yeah.
This is a like kind of challenge for the aggregated management like ODIM. ODIM will talk to multi-vendor systems and provide the aggregated system collection, but the system collection capabilities are one single object, one single resource here. So the underlying Redfish service may have a different capabilities. Worst case scenario, if we pass that information in the southbound to the underlying service, it may throw in like a error message. Hey, this maximum number of storage is not allowed, something like that.
Is there an association between the capabilities and the system object? Or
Well, it's a computer.
computer? Yes,
It's a computer system collection.
but that seems to violate the assumption that these collections can be heterogeneous.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at the collection capabilities, and it seems like it only has basically two properties, which is
Yeah,
max members, and then it has a capability property, which.
so maybe we need to pose another question to our esteemed Redfish Forum colleagues and say, okay, look, here's the reality of the situation. And, how do we handle that? Maybe we're missing something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's so, but why would we didn't want to have max members and things of that nature in ODIM, right?
If we had John on the call, we would probably.
Yeah.
Get
Perhaps
some.
we talk to John first before we post a question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think he knows the stuff inside out. He may be able to advise us on what we need to do. So maybe just send an email on the TSC alias or something to John, and this way everyone sees it, including him, and he can help us.
Yeah, is that something you can do, Muthu? Send an email to TSC, and we will. And you can copy, I don't know, you can copy John, or Alex can tell John to go read it and see if we can get some clarification there.
Yeah.
I'll ping him as well and say that we have a question for him. So he'll pay attention.
Okay.
I really do not know how to send a email to TSC group. Can somebody guide me? I never did.
It's just a email address. I think it's like ODIM dash.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Are you getting emails from there?
Yeah, I'm getting emails.
If you're getting, you can reply to one of them, I think.
My assumption was that I can go to this Confluence like forum and publish it somewhere, something like that. It will generate an email. I thought in that way. Direct email means I can send it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's the best way. This way he'll see it in his mailbox.
Yeah, one other input is like the Wednesday meeting somehow I lost in my calendar. And somebody forwarded to me Wednesday technical steering committee meetings.
Oh yeah, I can forward it to you.
Yeah, last week I missed it, so I thought it was cancelled or something like that. There are a couple of meetings were cancelled last week, so.
Hold on, I almost forward you the wrong ODIM weekly project meeting. Yeah, forward. So let me do that. Let me see if I can. Yep.
Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Any other topics for today? Okay.
So one action coming out of this meeting is that we kind of need to dig into the telemetry thing a little bit deeper and try to formalize what is it that we want, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're raising a lot of questions, and I think we are at the point where it's becoming increasingly visible that we haven't read the spec carefully enough, at least on my side. So that's what I would go and take a stab at. I agree. So we can be a little bit more educated when we talk next time.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I caught some notes now when I suspected I'm not going to get the recording. So I think we're good there. So I'll publish that. And then for the TSC meeting tomorrow, I did send out an email yesterday, Alex, already with the agenda. So hopefully that will mean that we will be enough people now tomorrow. Okay, guys. Appreciate your time.
All right, guys.
Have a good one. Yeah, bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.